So this past year, I've been on a rampage of watching some movies and TV shows that I missed out on over the years. And the one to start that rampage was Smallville. I'd heard a lot about this show, especially from people around my age. I saw a few traces of the reason the show gets a lot of praise, but it was still definitely finding its footing in season 1. The overall season didn't have much story connectivity, and there were just a few minor improvements that I was hoping to get in season 2. So did we get them? Let's find out. Here's a Smallville season 2 review from someone who didn't watch Smallville growing up. What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Eddie Knight. Welcome back to Nerdy Before It Was Cool, where we nerd out about TV and film, especially ones based on comic book characters. And by the way, to the person who told me about the crazy life of Chloe's character in real life, thank you for low-key kind of ruining the watch experience for me. It made it very strange and weird to get through, knowing that she was basically a cult leader. So I take back everything I said about the finale of season 1. I was a little underwhelmed with season 1's finale. I thought that it should have been a two-parter between the last 2 episodes, and that's what they basically did. The end of season 1's finale finished up in the first episode of season 2, and I thought it was pretty cool, but I still kind of wish that we would have just got that resolution in season 1. And I don't know if this trend is going to keep on going throughout the show, but it seems like every season we're going to unlock a new power. First season, we got the X-ray vision with my man peeking through the walls, checking out some chi-chis, and this season we have heat vision. They also really cranked up the horny this season. We got the sexy Tomb Raider girl, we got the unnecessarily hot teacher wearing skimpy clothing, a ton of shirtless and wet t-shirt scenes with Clark. There's even a scene where Tom Welling is completely nude. Basically, they found their audience, which was young teens, and they wanted to hit it hard.
Okay, I see what you did there.
So between season 1 and this season, a summer is past, but I like how everything still feels fresh. There's still some things unresolved, and I think that was really smart to leave season 1 so open-ended, because it really gave them a lot to play with this season. And I like that there's an ongoing story this season. Every episode seems to have just a little bit more connective tissue than it did in season 1. There was a clear running theme through this season, and that theme was identity. This season really focuses heavy on how Clark's secret is starting to affect his different relationships. Lex is becoming even more suspicious this season and slipping down further and further into finding out who Clark really is. It's also affecting his relationship with Lana. He just keeps flaking and bailing out on her and letting her down. He just isn't able to tell her why. It's also affecting his friendship with Pete. But with that conflict came what I was waiting for all of season 1, which was someone outside of the family, one of his friends, figure out what Clark really is. I really think this is fitting because in season 1, he felt a little underutilized and underdeveloped. So I'm glad he was more of a focal point this season. He's basically Clark's right-hand man. And now Clark finally has someone to share the weight and to share the load a little bit with beside his parents. Clark's dealing with his powers. He's trying to really understand himself and what they really mean, where he's from. Also, there's a woman claiming to be his biological mom and says that him and Lex are brothers. Lana is finding out about her biological dad. Chloe is struggling with her absent parent. Lana's now staying with Chloe because she didn't want to move away to Metropolis. And there's multiple episodes this season where something happens that makes people act out of character, whether it be the return of the shapeshifter from season 1, which I thought was really dope, or that parasite from the caves that feeds on people's desires and adrenaline and makes them become an extremely irrational and carefree version of themselves. And of course, there's Lex, who is also dealing with a lot this season. His story is super compelling to me this season. He's trying so hard not to become his father, but he just keeps slipping and slipping into these traps due to his insecurities and trust issues. He just wants to be loved, but he keeps on getting burned by women or burned by his father, and every time it happens, he comes a little more jaded, closed off, and insecure. I want to get into a few of my favorite episodes of this season, the standout episodes, if you will. And so I'm going to do my 3 favorite episodes of this season. The first one on the list is going to have to be episode 5. You know, I love my horror vibes in these types of shows, and I really like when comic books get a little bit weird. So episode 5 deals with this creepy family who claims that their son has died, but it doesn't really match their story because Clark and Lana have both seen this kid. He's pretty much stalking Lana and being a little creep and leaving her poems. It should be creepy, but it has this really innocent feel to it. Clark tells his dad that he thinks this kid is being abused by his parents, and they go over to the parents' house, and that's where we hear the story that the kid is dead. Clark knows this to not be true, so he eventually gets in the house and tries to save the kid, to only find out he was affected by the kryptonite as well, and that's why they've been hiding him away. There were a lot of horror elements in this episode, and there were a lot more to come later in the season 2. This is also the episode where Clark's mom accepted the job offer from Lionel Luthor, which opens a whole can of worms for later down the season. The next one on the list is gonna have to be episode 7. We get a lot of backstory in this episode that connects a lot of the missing pieces from season 1. There's a woman that comes to town claiming that she is Clark and Lex's biological mother, which we obviously know is false about Clark because we know he's an alien, but maybe she's truly Lex's mom. Since she's claiming to be his biological mother, we're needing a DNA sample from Clark, but we can't get that because if they get a DNA sample, they're gonna find out the truth about him and that he's not actually human. We also find out that Jonathan Kent was the whole reason that Lionel Luthor got his foot in the door in Smallville in the first place. So the day that the meteor rocks crashed, Jonathan Kent actually helped out Lionel and Lex and got Lex to the hospital in time. And in return, Lionel has some documents faked from Metropolis saying that Clark was born there. He says this was no strings attached and just a favor for helping him and his son, but this is Lionel Luthor we're talking about. Lionel basically used that to get his foot in the door in Smallville, which also opens another can of worms for some stuff to happen later on this season. The next episode I'm going to have to pick is episode 12 and 13. I know that's 2, but I see those as one combined episode. And side note, episode 12 would have been a great one for him to fly. It's pretty tragic that they had the no flights, no tights rule. But anyways, Martha finally sees how devious and sneaky that Lionel Luthor is. He's stockpiling kryptonite. This episode, Lex gets really curious and he wants to find out what his dad is hiding. So he unintentionally put his dad and Clark's mom in harm's way when the people that he hired start to go off script and want to take some things for themselves. This episode really causes more tension between Jonathan Kent and Lex. They have a really strange relationship. Lex kind of sees Jonathan Kent as like the father he wishes he had. Jonathan Kent wants to accept Lex as Clark's best friend, but he just can't get past the fact that he's a Luthor and he just does not trust any of the Luthors. And episode 13 by extension is basically a murder mystery. We spend the entire episode trying to figure out who shot Lionel Luthor. We're being told that it was Jonathan Kent and he actually had motive to do it, but so did many other people, and I really like how the episode played out. We go through Jonathan Kent and his motives, we go to Lex and his motives, and the way Lionel treats him, he definitely has plenty motive. But come to find out, we get an insane twist. It actually ends up being the sheriff. The sheriff blames Jonathan Kent for bringing the Luthors to Smallville. So he basically tried to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Frame Jonathan and kill Lionel. But it definitely backfired on him in the end. But those aren't the only 3 episodes I enjoyed. There's episode 18 where we think that there's possibly another Kryptonian on Earth. Then episode 21 with Lana seeing dead people. It was a little girl that she was friends with as a kid. Come to find out, the girl actually died and the dad cloned her. Then there's episode 11 with the return of Whitney. I was thinking maybe that he was experiencing PTSD or something like that, but come to find out it was actually the shapeshifter from season 1. But when Clark x-rayed him, I got a little excited because I thought it was gonna be Metallo. I thought that would have been dope. But honestly, there were a lot of episodes that I really enjoyed this season. Last season, I felt they were really hit or miss. There were about 7 or 8 that I really enjoyed, 2 or 3 that I thought were okay, and the rest were very passable. But this season, man, out of the 22 or 23 episodes, I really liked about 18 or 19 of them. That is a very high percentage. And I thought season 2's finale was handled much better than it was in season 1. Clark's identity crisis is coming to its peak here, where he does something extremely stupid and reckless and blows up his ship, which causes a crazy explosion, which leads to his mom being seriously hurt and losing the baby. Kinda looks like they're setting Chloe up to have a villain turn. Clark spirals out of control after what he did, grabs the red kryptonite ring and jets off. I'm assuming he's gonna go out of town to Metropolis. He finally got Lana last episode and he throws it all away. And then the season ends with Lex Luthor's plane crashing. The pilot and his wife are nowhere in sight. What the hell happened? Did she set him up? It's kind of what it looks like to me. Things were going well, so I don't know. I guess we will see next season.
Just find somebody new to blame.
Relationships in shows, especially superhero shows, is gonna be something that happens. But for me personally, I would say 7 times out of 10, it's usually not very interesting. The only time I really find it interesting is when that's the actual concept of the show, or we have like a dark and broody kind of tattered character like a Lex Luthor or like a Batman. Those are kind of interesting to me sometimes, but most other times I just don't find it very interesting, especially when those relationships become the driving force of the stories. The push and pull between Clark and Lana this season is getting really annoying. I hope this doesn't continue to happen in later seasons, at least not for much longer. I can understand if it goes on for another season or 2, but it's getting to the point where it's hard to even root for them to be together. Same thing with Clark and Chloe. If he doesn't end up with one of them after season 3, I hope they just cut that thread and move on to something new. And lastly, the nitpick is similar to what we had last season. Kryptonite is behind everything in this show. I do love the red kryptonite episodes, and I think a lot of the villain of the weeks are really cool, but I would like to see more storylines like the one from the caves where the parasite entered their body. You know, just something new and refreshing that doesn't only rely on kryptonite. But look guys, I really enjoyed season 2. Very few complaints, a lot of episodes that I loved. It's definitely miles better than season 1 in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think of Smallville season 2 down in the comments.